Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So we have a couple of topics to get into today. First of all, let's look at the third quarter earnings report from Nintendo. So Nintendo released their third quarter earnings report today, and I wanted to highlight a few things here. First, they have their consolidated sales. And the numbers aren't great, but I guess it could have been worse. Sales were down overall 1.9%. Hardware and software and accessories were down 2%. Mobile-related content was down 2.3%. And actually playing cards were up 88.5%, but that's just a small portion of Nintendo's overall sales, so it really didn't move the overall number much. And Nintendo adjusted their financial forecast for this fiscal year. They cut the projected number of Switch sales by 1 million, from 19 million to 18 million units by the end of the fiscal year. This is a reduction of about 5.3%. And then here in the upper left-hand corner, we've got a breakdown of the overall sales comparing the last 9 months of 2021 with the last 9 months of 2022. And during that period, hardware sales were down 21.3%. And the Switch OLED does make up the majority of those hardware sales. And while we see the Switch OLED numbers show as being up for that same period, it didn't get released until late in 2021. So those numbers are kind of skewed because in 2022, we basically had all 9 months of these 3 quarters for the sales numbers. But just as a side note, the Switch has now surpassed the Game Boy and the PS4 in sales. And now it only has the DS and the PS2 left to pass, and it will need to sell about 33 million units to do so. It seems like that may not happen if we see a Switch successor released in early 2024. And with Nintendo only forecasting about 18 million units selling this fiscal year, which ends at the end of March, it'll be really close. Honestly, I think a lot of it will just boil down to how quickly that Switch successor gets announced. And not only are hardware sales down, but software is also down 4%. And they kind of highlighted some of their titles that have sold a lot. Of course, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet sold the most, and it was released in November of last year, and it got off to the fastest start of any title for a Nintendo-dedicated video game platform, and it did all these sales in just the first 7 weeks. So considering that success, I wouldn't expect the next Pokemon game to come out in any better shape as far as bugs go. And you can see the other titles they highlighted here, but then they did also release a full list, and these are in the order of unit sales from April to December of 2022. And Nintendo says there are 27 million seller titles, and these are the 19 first-party titles that sold 1 million. And of course, there's a lot of evergreen titles here. Of course, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. We also see Mario Party Superstars, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And skipping down a bit further, I did want to point out that Bayonetta 3 did sell 1.04 million units. Now that will become important here in just a minute. But first, let's look over at the digital sales, and one amazing stat here is that the proportion of digital sales is now 46%, and that's up from 40.2%. So a 5.8% increase in their digital sales. But looking at the top line here, you can see that the overall digital sales is up 21.5%. Now this includes everything, including DLC and the Nintendo Switch online service, which I would probably guess is the reason why this number has gotten so high. But then you might ask, what's going to be next for Nintendo? And they kind of go over some of their announced products coming up. And I just kind of want to talk about each of the one in the thumbnails here. Of course, I think Fire Emblem Engage will do really well, and a Kirby remake will do a decent amount of sales. I don't think it's going to be just a huge blockbuster. However, I think Bayonetta Origins is not going to break 1 million in sales. If you remember earlier, I pointed out that Bayonetta 3 just barely made it over the 1 million mark. And I don't see as much hype for this game as there was for Bayonetta 3, so if it gets to 1 million, I'll be surprised. Maybe it might get their lifetime sales, but it's not going to do it very quickly. And obviously Tears of the Kingdom will be gangbusters, there's no doubt about that. And then Pikmin 4 will sell over 1 million units. Pikmin 3 Deluxe on the Switch sold 2.23 million, and that's on top of the 1.27 million that originally sold for the Wii U version. But as you're looking at these titles and these dates, these are all for the first half of 2023, except for Pikmin 4, and that's most likely going to be in the second half, considering they don't have a date for it yet. Now, Nintendo likes to keep release information pretty quiet until they're ready to make a big announcement. So does that mean we will see Metroid Prime 4 get released before the end of the year? Who knows? And then Nintendo highlighted some non-gaming content that will reach out, I guess you'd say, to the normies. The Super Nintendo World will open at Universal Studios Hollywood on February 17th. And the new Super Mario Bros. Movie will be out on April 7th in the US and April 28th in Japan, which is kind of odd that it's coming out later in Japan, but I guess maybe there's some extra work that needs to be done. Since the movie is being done by Illumination, I guess that's being done stateside here. And I'm guessing Nintendo highlighted this to sort of get their investors excited that they're going to be hopefully bringing in more people to Nintendo's IPs. But I guess we'll see how this works. But overall, I'm not too surprised with the numbers that they were down. However, I think that many were surprised by the cut in forecasted earnings. The Switch is going into its 7th year, and it's getting a little bit long in the teeth. But let me know what you think. Do you think Nintendo will meet those forecasted sales numbers, or do you think it may slip even more? And sort of a related topic, we're actually getting that Nintendo Direct tomorrow. We have the announcement here from Nintendo of America. Tune in at 2 p.m. Pacific, which is 5 p.m. Eastern, February 8th for a Nintendo Direct live stream featuring roughly 40 minutes of information, mostly focused on Nintendo Switch games launching in the first half of 2023. Now first, there's a couple of interesting things from this announcement. The fact that it says mostly focused on Switch games means there'll be something there that's not Switch game related, most likely the Super Mario Bros. Movie and perhaps Super Nintendo World at Universal Hollywood. Now, the other interesting note here is that it's going to start at 5 p.m. Eastern, which is 7 a.m. in Japan. A lot of times we get these directs in the morning Eastern time, which would be in the evening in Japan. So I'm thinking the timing may be related to something that's shadow dropped, and perhaps maybe they need just a little bit of extra time there to get it going and get it to selling, I guess, in Japan, but we'll see. Now, of course, speculation runs wild. What will we see at this Nintendo Direct? First of all, I doubt we're going to see Metroid Prime 4. More than likely, if that comes out this year, it's going to be the second half. So, as their tweet said, they're focusing on the first half of 2023. I'm also doubting that we're going to see that Zelda Twin Pack, the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess one that's been rumored for quite a while. That seems again like it might be something in the second half of this year. And Nintendo is known to sort of hold on to titles and just sort of plug them in when they might have a gap in their schedule. And as we covered in the earnings report, we don't have much information about the last half of 2023 except for Pikmin, which isn't necessarily their largest seller. And of course, you have to wonder, will we see Advance Wars drop? And that's a good possibility. There's been a lot of rumors about that being shadow dropped, but we'll find out. And I'm sure we're going to get a lot of information about Tears of the Kingdom with it coming out in May. But one thing that I had wondered, would we see a price drop for the Switch? Now, the Switch going into its 7th year has yet to have a price drop. And we know from the financial reports that the overall sales for the Switch family of systems are down. However, Nintendo has reportedly increased production. So I have to wonder, why would they think that they're going to sell more when their sales are down? But we do have all but official confirmation that there's going to be a Tears of the Kingdom OLED Switch coming up. There was like these leaked photos of it that seemed pretty legit, and that most likely will get announced in the Direct. I could even see them basically releasing it ahead of time, just like they did with the Pokemon one, that it's released and available before the game is, because of course it doesn't come with the game. But one question I do ask myself is, could we see the Nintendo drop that original Switch version and replace it with just the OLED and drop the price to $300 to match what that older Switch model had? And the more I think about it, the more I don't think that they would. And the main reason is that their earnings report last year said that Nintendo made less profit on the OLED model, which was surprising to many. Many people thought that they just slapped an OLED screen on the system and charged $50 more and made more money off of it, but that's actually not the case. Obviously, the OLED screen costs more than $50 over the original LCD screen on that first version of the Switch. And there's been many people speculating that they would have another special edition of the OLED. I don't know, maybe we'll see a Pikmin 4 OLED this year, who knows. But it seems unlikely to me that they would drop the price of especially the OLED version, considering they make less off of it. And I'm sure we'll see some third-party titles get announced and maybe shadow dropped. We've also got that Hogwarts Legacy Switch version that was delayed. So I'm not sure if we'll see some information about that, where Switch owners are kind of like, but why can't we play it now? The other systems are getting it. I think I've also heard something about some exclusive agreement with Sony for marketing it, but I'm not real positive on that. But drop a comment below and let me know what you think may be at this Nintendo Direct. And do you think it's about time for the Switch to have a price drop to maybe increase the sales numbers? And that's all I have for today. I want to thank you for watching and be good.